Thank you, Mr. President. Today will be a sad day in the Georgia Senate, without a doubt, in the history of this body. To close debate on such a motion, to close debate where we're talking about human rights here, the rights of people who have been subjugated to discrimination for over 500 years, mind you, in this particular nation and also in this particular state. One of the reasons why I believe this happened was because there were three amendments that I think were actually friendly amendments, quite frankly. One of them dealing with, all of them dealing with the history of African Americans within this particular country. Amendment number 2 talked about slavery was a major contributing cause to American Civil War. Amendment number 3 also talked about the Confederate States of America being a separate nation and one that was rebellious. And also Amendment number 6 talked about similar ideas, that the Confederate States was a separate nation and rebelled against the United States. And we maintain in this particular caucus that this body was afraid to address those particular amendments. And that's what actually closes this debate. And we would hope that they would actually open this, because when you start talking about that you believe in equality and fairness, then I think that those amendments were definitely friendly amendments. If someone comes in here and starts talking about they believe in equality and fairness, then you certainly cannot hold the values that represented the Confederacy of the states. You certainly cannot hold the values that represent slavery within this particular country. And these things would have spoke to that. These amendments would have spoke to that. And we know for a fact, no one can doubt, no one can ever doubt that this state and this nation and the Confederate States of America was founded on the concept of slavery. And that's what their persons were afraid of, because they knew they could not vote against that particular amendment. They knew the fact in Mississippi it says this in their Confederate state charter: our position is thoroughly identified within the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world, its labor supplies, the product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of commerce on earth. That's the Mississippi succession of states. They knew for a fact they could never say that slavery was not a contributing factor, even though they know their crazy base would not want them to vote for that, because they know that Georgia, in their succession of states, said this: for the last 10 years, we have had numerous and serious causes of complaint against our non-slave holding Confederate states with reference to the subject of African slavery. So they understood exactly they could not vote against these amendments, but they couldn't vote for them. And so that's why they stopped this debate, because they were afraid of the truth of what Georgia actually represented over the last 100 years. They were afraid of the truth that the fact of the matter is the first African-American admitted to law school was in 1966. Africans have been in this state since 1526, 440 years. And the first African-American ever admitted to law school was 440 years later. And we're sitting up here talking about some silly DEI kind of programs where state-sponsored discrimination, state law, stop persons from gaining access to these schools. And you're concerned and want to equate some type of DEI program that maybe makes somebody feel uncomfortable with real discrimination, real policies that affected African Americans. The first African American mayor in Augusta, elected in 1980, 450 years for the first time African Americans were brought here. The first medical student admitted to medical school in Georgia, 437 years after the first African was brought to Georgia. And then persons dare say that anybody that survived that, any descendant that survived that is unqualified. I will tell you that any descendant that survived that is the most qualified person in this room, the most qualified person in this state, and have the audacity to actually talk about persons who have overcome state-sponsored discrimination for 450 years. And to say that those people on any level is unqualified to do anything. And that because there may be some program that maybe makes somebody feel uncomfortable in a classroom, you're going to actually deprive persons again. This is a sad day. Make no mistake. This is one of the worst days in the Georgia Senate history. We were prepared to fight this bill all night. This caucus runs from nothing and would never run from anything. When it comes to the human rights of our people, we're going to fight. And we were prepared to fight all night. We're sorry that you were not prepared to defend your positions, as you once again are going backwards as far as race relations in this country is concerned. With that, I yield the well.